I came home from a 16-hour hospital shift and my daughter's bedroom no longer existed. Interesting thing about betrayal. Sometimes it doesn't arrive like violence. Sometimes it arrives as fresh paint drying quietly in your hallway. My 7-year-old's bed was gone. Her dresser was gone. Half the stars we painted together on her ceiling had already disappeared beneath gray primer. And standing in the doorway, my mother folded her arms and told me, "We voted." Pause. You don't get a say. Interesting, honestly. Because there are moments when your entire understanding of family changes permanently in under 10 words. My name is Donna Atwood. 33 years old. Registered nurse. Single mother. Professional calmer of emergencies. Interesting thing about trauma nurses. We learned very early that panic wastes oxygen. I've worked nights at St. Bridget's Regional Hospital for 8 years. Cardiac floors. Trauma overflow. Double shifts nobody wants. The kind of work where people scream while you stay steady. And honestly, that steadiness saved me the night my family tried taking my house room by room. 3 years earlier, I bought a small brick house on Coldwater Lane. Crooked porch. Old kitchen. Mortgage terrifying enough to make me nauseous signing it. But mine. Entirely mine. Interesting thing about surviving hard years. Ownership feels almost unreal the first time something belongs only to you. The second week after moving in, Lily asked if her bedroom ceiling could become the night sky. So we bought glow paint. Cheap stick-on stars. And spent an entire Sunday balancing on ladders creating constellations together. She named one after our cat. One after me. One after the moondog because 7-year-olds don't care whether astronomy makes sense. Interesting, honestly. Because children create sacred places accidentally while adults are too exhausted to notice. At night, her ceiling glowed soft blue. And every evening before bed, Lily whispered goodnight to each star individually. That was the room my mother decided could become a content studio. Interesting thing about entitlement. It usually starts small enough to sound reasonable at first. 3 years before the painted stars, my father underwent open heart surgery. Recovery complicated. Bills overwhelming. And my mother asked if they could stay with me temporarily. Temporary. Dangerous word. Interesting, honestly. Because some people move into your life the same way ivy climbs walls. Slow enough you don't notice until the structure belongs to them emotionally. Dad recovered. Then stayed. My younger sister Brooke stayed too because Brooke always stayed wherever someone else paid the bills. By the time I bought Coldwater Lane, the 3 of them simply moved in beside me naturally. Like my house automatically belonged to everyone once I stopped fighting exhaustion long enough to notice. Interesting thing about overworked daughters. We often confuse survival with consent. The takeover happened quietly. First, my mother rearranged the kitchen cabinets because she preferred the mugs somewhere else. Then the refrigerator calendar became her calendar. Then my father's chair became the chair. The one nobody else sat in anymore. Interesting, honestly. Because houses stop belonging to you emotionally long before paperwork changes. My mother had one favorite sentence for everything. Family. We share in this family. We sacrifice in this family. We don't keep score in this family. Interesting thing about people constantly preaching family. They're usually preparing to take something that belongs to you individually. Brooke was 29. Unemployed. Trying desperately to become famous online. She owned a ring light. 3 crystals. And an account called Home and Harmony with 400 followers. 3 of them were my mother's bridge friends. Interesting, honestly. Because social media ambition becomes incredibly dangerous once someone else is funding the fantasy. Brooke constantly talked about needing a real creative space. A real studio. Good lighting. Natural aesthetic. And every time she said it, her eyes drifted toward Lily's bedroom. The biggest room in the house besides mine. I noticed. I just underestimated how entitled they'd become together. That was my mistake. Interesting thing about manipulative families. They study your exhaustion carefully before making bigger moves. 3 days before the double shift, we sat around the dinner table eating spaghetti. Normal Tuesday. Garlic bread. Lily building couch forts nearby pretending not to listen. Then Brooke casually announced, "I've been thinking seriously about the studio." My mother nodded immediately before Brooke even continued. That nod scared me later. Because it meant the conversation already existed privately without me. "I just need a real space," Brooke explained. "Good light. A door that closes." And then she looked directly down the hallway. Toward Lily's room. Interesting, honestly. Because predators revealed themselves through eye direction before words. "That's Lily's room." I kept my voice flat. "It's a huge room for one kid," Brooke answered immediately. "She's barely even in there during the day." Lily stopped building her blanket fort. Children always listen harder once adults pretend they aren't. "She's 7. I set my glass down carefully. "She's supposed to be at school during the day." My mother folded her napkins slowly into a square. "Nobody's deciding anything tonight, Donna." Pause. "We're just discussing things as a family." There it was. Family. Interesting thing about controlling people. They often introduce theft disguised as collaboration first. The answer is no. Simple sentence. "It's her room." Brooke rolled her eyes immediately. Then looked toward our mother. And my mother gave her a small patient smile. The kind teachers give children after promising privately they'll get their way eventually. I should have recognized that smile. I was too tired. Interesting, honestly. Because exhaustion lowers your ability to recognize danger emotionally. That night, I tucked Lily into bed beneath our painted stars. She hugged Biscuit. Her old gray stuffed rabbit missing one button eye. "Mama?" "Yeah, baby? When you're off work, can we add more stars?" Interesting thing about children. They keep planning beautiful futures even while adults quietly dismantle them nearby. Of course. I kissed her forehead. "All the stars you want." She fell asleep smiling beneath our handmade sky. And honestly, if I had known what my family planned while I worked that next day, I never would have left the house. Morning came at 5:15. Dark outside. Cold coffee. Hospital scrubs. Lily woke just enough to stumble sleepily into the kitchen while I packed my lunch. Long shift? The long one. She wrapped both arms around my waist. "Paint more stars when you get home." "I promise." Interesting, honestly. Because some promises become sacred specifically because someone else tried breaking them later. I left the house at 6:15 a.m. The sky still gray. The house quiet behind me. And somewhere inside it, 3 adults were already making plans for a 7-year-old's bedroom while her mother kept other people alive for overtime pay. Should have known something was wrong the moment my phone started vibrating non-stop before noon. Interesting thing about hospital work. Sometimes the hour you ignore your phone is the exact hour your personal life catches fire. 3 missed calls from my mother. 2 texts from Brooke. 1 unknown number. Buzz. 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 And meanwhile, I was inside Trauma Bay 3 trying to keep a man's heart from stopping permanently. Interesting, honestly. Because life never schedules betrayals around your convenience. The patient was 58. Massive cardiac failure. Sweat pouring off him. Monitor alarms screaming. His wife crying into both hands beside the curtain. And in those moments? Nothing else exists except keeping someone alive. That's what people outside hospitals never understand. Some hours. You simply cannot answer your phone. Interesting thing about responsibility. The people carrying the most of it usually get punished hardest for being unavailable once. We lost him twice. Got him back twice. By the time he stabilized upstairs, my hands were still shaking with adrenaline. The good kind of shaking. The kind nurses recognize. The kind that means you held the line successfully. Interesting, honestly. Because competence becomes its own kind of loneliness after a while. Renata found me restocking 4 kits afterward. 61 years old. Gray braid. Voice like worn leather. The kind of woman who could stop chaos simply by entering a room. You look like somebody whose phone won't stop screaming. I laughed tiredly. My family. Renata snorted softly. Family. Interesting thing about older nurses. They can identify emotional infections faster than medical ones. It's probably about a room. A room? My sister wants my daughter's bedroom for social media videos. Renata finally looked up from the supply cart. Then quietly. Eat something before you call anybody back. Interesting, honestly. Because wise women understand exhausted people become easy to manipulate emotionally. I ate a granola bar standing beside a vending machine. And while chewing, I suddenly thought about the manila folder sitting inside the bottom dresser drawer at home. The deed. Mortgage documents. Closing paperwork. Every paper proving the house belonged entirely to me. Interesting thing about intuition. Sometimes your body notices danger before your mind catches up fully. I ignored the feeling. Clocked back in. Finished the shift. Then picked up another 8 hours because someone called out sick. By the time I finally drove home, it was 9:40 p.m. Every light inside my house was on. Interesting, honestly. Because houses glow differently once they stop feeling safe. The front door was unlocked. Fresh paint smell hit me immediately. Primer. Packing tape. Something chemical underneath the normal scent of home. Then I walked down the hallway toward Lily's room. And stopped. Interesting thing about shock. Your brain goes silent before your emotions arrive. The bed was gone. The dresser was gone. Half the stars on the ceiling had already disappeared beneath ugly gray paint. And kneeling in the center of the room? Brooke sealed cardboard boxes with a tape gun. One box had Lily written across the side in black marker. A ring light already stood plugged into the corner. Cold white glow against the half-painted wall. Interesting, honestly. Because some people turn your child's pain into aesthetic background unbelievably fast. Where's my daughter? My voice came out quiet. The dangerous quiet. My mother appeared behind me in the hallway immediately. Arms folded. She's with Travis for a few days. Pause. She's fine. Travis. Lily's father. A man who hadn't voluntarily kept her overnight in 5 months. Interesting thing about manipulative people. They always describe catastrophic decisions as temporary favors. You sent her away? She needs structure. Brooke kept taping boxes while speaking. And honestly, this room works perfectly for content. Content. Interesting, honestly. Because there are words that permanently change how you see someone once they say them calmly enough. I looked at the gray paint swallowing our stars. Looked at the box with my daughter's name on it. And something inside me went completely cold. Not rage. Not panic. Clarity. Huge difference. Interesting thing about trauma nurses. We learn to slow down exactly when everyone expects us to explode. When did Lily leave? This afternoon. Did anyone ask me first? We tried calling. My mother shrugged lightly. You didn't answer. Like saving someone's life became evidence against me somehow. Interesting, honestly. Because controlling families weaponize your responsibilities the second they become inconvenient. What exactly did you tell Travis? Tiny pause. First crack in the story. That you were overwhelmed. Another pause. That you needed a few days. I stared at her carefully. I never said that. My mother smoothed invisible wrinkles from her sleeve. Well, somebody had to think practically. Practically. Interesting thing about emotionally controlling people. They rename cruelty with efficient vocabulary constantly. The practical side, Brooke added, finally standing up. We figured while Lily's gone we'd just set the room up now. Set the room up. Like my child was summer furniture moved into storage temporarily. Interesting, honestly. Because entitlement sounds horrifying once you repeat it slowly enough. We're family, my mother said. We make decisions together. And there it was. The sentence. The one that changed everything permanently. We voted. Pause. You don't get a say. Interesting thing about betrayal. Sometimes it doesn't hurt because people disagreed with you. It hurts because they genuinely believed your child belonged to committee rule. I replayed those words for months afterward. We voted. You don't get a say. Inside my own hallway. About my own daughter. In my own house. Interesting, honestly. Because some people stay guests so long they begin hallucinating ownership emotionally. Most people expect screaming at this point. Broken dishes. Crying. Not me. I set my keys carefully on the windowsill. Then asked calmly. Tell me exactly how the vote worked. My mother blinked slightly. Thrown off immediately. Because manipulators prepare for emotional reactions. Not precision. Interesting thing about calm people. Our silence becomes terrifying once we stop using it to protect everyone else. 4-1, my mother answered. Your father agreed. Brooke agreed. Travis agreed. Travis. The man they manipulated using lies. Interesting, honestly. Because dishonest people count stolen consent as real votes constantly. And Lily? What about her? Did anybody ask the 7-year-old whose room it actually was? Brooke rolled her eyes dramatically. She's a kid. Exactly. Interesting thing about decent adults. We don't evict children emotionally for social media lighting. I picked up Biscuit from the half-packed box carefully. His missing button I stared crookedly toward me. Then I walked outside without another word. My mother followed onto the porch. Donna, you're overreacting. I unlocked the car slowly. Am I? She's perfectly safe. She cried for 6 hours. My mother waved one hand dismissively. Children cry. Interesting, honestly. Because emotionally immature people treat children's distress like background noise whenever it interrupts adult desires. I got into the driver's seat. Then finally looked directly at her. You keep saying family like it's a vote you're allowed to win. It is. Arms folded tighter. 4 of us. 1 of you. 4 of us. 1 of you. Interesting thing about toxic families. They count silence and manipulation as support automatically. I started the engine while she kept talking. Because honestly, arguing with my mother was like arguing with a tornado. Noise without movement. Interesting thing about healing. Eventually you stop trying to convince people who already benefited from misunderstanding you. Drove 45 minutes through the dark with Biscuit sitting in the passenger seat like evidence. Interesting thing about betrayal. Once people cross a certain line emotionally, your sadness hardens into strategy. The highway blurred beneath yellow headlights while I replayed the sentence over and over inside my head. We voted. Not. We talked. Not. We worried. Voted. Interesting honestly. Because voting only matters when people believe they already own part of something. Travis lived in a small duplex outside Millfield. Second floor apartment. Basketball shoes outside the door. Television too loud. The exact kind of apartment belonging to a man permanently halfway between adulthood and apology. Interesting thing about absent fathers. Many of them aren't cruel. They're simply unfinished. Lily ran outside before I fully parked. Backpack bouncing. Tears drying on her cheeks. Biscuit immediately forgotten once she saw me. And honestly? That nearly shattered me more than the empty room did. Because 7-year-olds should never look relieved their mother came back. Interesting thing about children. They measure safety through consistency more than perfection. I knelt beside the car while she wrapped herself around my neck. I wanna come home. You are home. Simple sentence. Sacred sentence. I held her tightly enough to feel her heartbeat slowing against mine. Travis stood in the doorway watching us. Hands shoved awkwardly into sweatpants pockets. Guilt all over his face. Interesting honestly. Because decent people usually recognize manipulation immediately once the fog clears. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Your mom made it sound like you asked for help. I know. Pause. You were lied to too. That visibly relieved him. Because Travis expected a fight. Men like him always expect emotional explosions eventually. Interesting thing about calm women. People mistake our restraint for weakness until they realize it's control. Lily climbed into the back seat clutching Biscuit again. Then Travis leaned slightly toward my window. She cried the whole drive over. Silence. Kept asking why Grandma was packing her room. Interesting thing about heartbreak. Sometimes one sentence reveals exactly how frightened your child actually was while you weren't there. I gripped the steering wheel harder. What did you tell her? The truth. Tiny shrug. That I didn't know. Honestly? That made me respect him more in 30 seconds than my family had managed in 3 years. Interesting honestly. Because honesty sounds extraordinary once you grow up surrounded by manipulation. Lily fell asleep before we reached the highway. One sock half off. Biscuit tucked beneath her chin. I drove one-handed while holding her tiny foot gently through the seat gap. And somewhere around mile marker 22, the plan finally became clear. Not revenge. Correction. Huge difference. Interesting thing about nurses. We solve problems methodically because panic never stabilizes patients. What did my mother actually have? No lease. No rent payments. No ownership. Just confidence. Interesting honestly. Because some people mistake unchecked access for legal standing. What did I have? The deed. Mortgage records. Custody papers. Every document proving reality still belonged to me no matter how loudly they voted against it emotionally. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I already knew exactly what I needed next. A lawyer. Not a fight. Interesting thing about toxic families. They survive through emotional chaos because chaos prevents documentation. I carried Lily inside carefully. She barely stirred when I laid her in my bed. Then I stood in the doorway of her destroyed bedroom looking up at the half-painted ceiling. Gray primer swallowing our stars. The room smelled like chemicals now instead of bedtime. Interesting honestly. Because spaces absorb emotional violence the same way fabric absorbs smoke. The next morning, my family performed normalcy at breakfast. Pancakes. Coffee. Morning news humming softly in the background. Like nobody had boxed up a child's life 24 hours earlier. Interesting thing about manipulative people. They believe acting normal fast enough forces everyone else to accept the new reality. My mother slid a glossy refinancing brochure across the table while I poured coffee. I've been researching options. Pause. If we refinance together, everyone could be on equal footing here. There it was. Finally. The real objective underneath the room. Interesting, honestly. Because entitlement always wants paperwork eventually. Equal footing? It's silly, the whole house is only in your name. My mother smiled brightly. What if something happened to you? There it was again. Concern disguised as acquisition. Interesting thing about controlling parents. They often speak like worried advisors while planning ownership quietly underneath. And the studio? Brooke brightened instantly. Oh my God, Saturday's gonna be amazing. Saturday. Interesting. Because suddenly my family had accidentally given me witnesses. We invited collaborators. A photographer. Mrs. Okafor next door. Couple branding people. My mother nodded proudly. It'll be a real launch event. Interesting, honestly. Because narcissistic people love audiences right until the audience stops agreeing with them. I smiled softly into my coffee cup. Sounds lovely. And for the first time in 3 years, my mother completely misread my calm. She thought it meant surrender. It actually meant preparation. Interesting thing about quiet people. Once we stop protecting you emotionally, we become very dangerous strategically. That afternoon, I found Brooke's tablet charging on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. Screen glowing with an open family group chat. The title made my stomach drop instantly. Atwood House. Interesting, honestly. Because there are moments when exclusion becomes physical evidence instead of intuition. Everyone was inside the chat. My mother. My father. Brooke. Even Aunt Carol from Michigan. Everyone except me. The homeowner. I scrolled upward slowly. 6 weeks. They planned it for 6 entire weeks. Interesting thing about betrayal. The timeline always hurts worse than the act itself. Messages filled the screen. We'll present it as a family vote. Donna won't fight all of us. She never does. She never does. Interesting, honestly. Because my own mother had studied my patience the way burglars study alarm systems. Then I saw the photo. A quitclaim deed form partially filled out. Sticky note attached beside it. Get Dee to sign. Tell her it's for fire insurance. I stared at the words for a very long time. Not shocked. Certain. Interesting thing about discovering manipulation fully. Eventually confusion disappears and leaves only clarity behind. They weren't taking a room. They were taking footholds. 1 cabinet. 1 bedroom. 1 signature. 1 exhausted compromise at a time. And suddenly, I understood the most dangerous thing about kindness. Interesting, honestly. People who benefit from your gentleness eventually mistake it for permanent permission. People who benefit from your kindness eventually mistake it for permanent permission. Interesting thing about calm women. The moment we stop protecting everyone else's comfort, people suddenly discover we were never weak to begin with. I photographed every message on Brooke's tablet carefully. The group chat. The quitclaim deed. The sticky note telling my mother to trick me into signing over my own house for fire insurance. 6 weeks of planning. 6 weeks of studying me like a problem to manage. Interesting, honestly. Because betrayal becomes colder once you realize people rehearsed it together privately first. Then I placed the tablet exactly where I found it. Charging. Innocent looking. Like a loaded weapon left on a kitchen counter. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep beside me, I locked myself inside the closet and let myself feel everything for exactly 10 minutes. Not longer. 10. Interesting thing about survival. Sometimes you schedule grief because there are practical things left to do afterward. I sat on the floor staring at the wall while the house around me slept peacefully inside a reality that no longer existed. 6 weeks. My mother spent 6 entire weeks planning how to remove my daughter from her own room. And the worst part? She counted on my calm helping her succeed. Interesting, honestly. Because manipulative people often treat your emotional discipline like free labor. When the 10 minutes ended, I stood up, washed my face, and made a list. Nurses make lists when people are crashing. It's how we stop fear from becoming chaos. Step 1. Get Lily safe. Done. Step 2. Find out exactly what legal reality looked like. Not feelings. Not family. Reality. Interesting thing about healing. Eventually you stop arguing emotionally and start documenting strategically. I called Patricia Vance the next morning during lunch break from my car outside the hospital. Property attorney. Pearl earrings. Voice sharp enough to cut glass politely. Exactly the kind of woman my mother had spent her entire life underestimating. Interesting, honestly. Because controlling people rarely expect their quiet daughters to hire professionals. I explained everything calmly. The house. The deed. The room. The vote. The custody lie. The quick claim form. Patricia listened without interrupting once. Then finally asked. Whose name is on the deed? Mine. Only yours? Only mine. Interesting thing about lawyers. They separate emotional fog from legal reality in under 30 seconds. Have they ever paid rent? No. Signed a lease? No. And your daughter? I have sole legal custody. Patricia's pen stopped moving. Then came the sentence that changed my entire nervous system instantly. A family vote has absolutely no legal standing. Interesting, honestly. Because hearing reality out loud after years of manipulation feels physically shocking. You own the house. They are guests. You can legally remove them. Pause. And nobody gets to decide where your child sleeps except you. I closed my eyes inside the hospital parking lot. Not crying. Breathing. Huge difference. Interesting thing about validation. Sometimes the body releases fear before the mind fully catches up. So I'm not crazy. Patricia laughed softly. No, Donna. Pause. You're simply the only adult in that house acting legally. Interesting, honestly. Because manipulative families survive by making the sane person question herself first. The paperwork moved quickly after that. 3 notices to vacate. Legally drafted. 30 days. Certified copies. Every line precise. Calm. Impossible to argue emotionally. Interesting thing about boundaries. They sound cruel only to people benefiting from your lack of them. Thursday afternoon? A process server delivered the notices while I watched through the kitchen window. My mother signed automatically. Barely looked at the envelopes. Then tossed them directly into the junk basket beside the door unopened. Junk mail. Interesting, honestly. Because entitlement makes people unbelievably careless once they stop believing consequences apply to them. I also finalized emergency custody reinforcement paperwork for Lily. Not because Travis wanted conflict. Because never again deserved legal ink. Everything filed. Everything documented. Everything quiet. And by Friday night, I became the only person inside that house who understood what Saturday was actually going to be. Interesting thing about preparation. Real power stays silent until timing matters. Late Friday evening. After everyone slept, I walked into Lily's stripped bedroom carrying glow paint and a small brush. The gray primer still covered half the ceiling. Ghost marks where stars used to live. And honestly, that hurt worse than any argument. Interesting thing about children's spaces. You can physically feel love missing after someone removes it carelessly. I climbed onto the stepladder slowly. Then painted back one single star. Just one. Small. Glowing faintly above the empty space where Lily's bed belonged. Interesting honestly. Because rebuilding safety usually starts with one tiny act repeated consistently. My father appeared quietly in the doorway while I painted. Bathrobe. Tired eyes. Hands hanging uselessly at his sides. She wasn't always like this, he whispered. Meaning my mother. Interesting thing about passive men. They often become historians of damage instead of protectors against it. I know. He stared up at the ruined ceiling. She got scared after we lost the old house. Pause. She decided nobody would ever take anything from her again. Interesting. Because suddenly my mother made horrifying emotional sense. Not excuse. Context. Huge difference. She holds too tight now. My father nodded once weakly. I know. And honestly? For 1 second? I thought he might finally stand beside me. Interesting thing about hope. Sometimes it survives years longer than logic. Instead he sighed quietly and said, just don't make a scene tomorrow. There it was. The entire tragedy of my father compressed into one sentence. Not morality. Not protection. Comfort. Interesting honestly. Because weak people often care more about avoiding conflict than stopping harm. Saturday morning arrived bright and cold. Guests started arriving around 10. Brooke's collaborators. A photographer named Devon. My neighbor Mrs. Okafor carrying a casserole dish because older women instinctively bring food whenever tension exists. Interesting thing about wise neighbors. They recognize emotional weather faster than family members do. My mother floated around the house radiating hostess energy. Smiling. Performing. Calling Lily's bedroom the new creative space. The ring light already glowed in the corner. Cold white circle against the half-painted wall. And standing beside it. My daughter clutched biscuit silently against her chest. Interesting honestly. Because children always understand more than adults hope they do. Maybe we should do a toast, my mother announced brightly. To family helping family. There it was again. Family. The word she used like a crowbar. I stepped forward calmly. Manila folder beneath my arm. Hospital badge clipped to my sweater even though I wasn't working. Donna Atwood, RN. The calm in the loud room. Interesting thing about identity. Sometimes you wear proof of yourself so nobody else gets to rewrite you publicly. Before the toast, I said softly. Can I ask Mom to explain something for everyone? The room went still immediately. My mother smiled carefully. What is it, honey? Earlier this week, you explained how the family voted on Lily's room. I smiled gently toward the guests. I just want to make sure I understood correctly. Interesting honestly. Because manipulators become incredibly vulnerable once forced to repeat their logic publicly. My mother lifted her chin proudly. Of course she did. She'd never backed down from an audience in her life. We're a close family, she explained warmly. We make decisions together. Pause. And yes, Donna was outvoted 4-1. There it was. Witnessed. Interesting thing about narcissistic people. They usually destroy themselves once given enough confidence to speak freely. Thank you, I said quietly. Then I placed the manila folder onto the dining table. Opened it carefully. And removed the deed. The room shifted instantly. Not loudly. Pressure changed. Huge difference. Interesting honestly. Because reality entering a manipulative room feels physical. This is the deed to the house. I held it gently. Recorded 2 years ago. Pause. There is exactly one name on it. I let the silence settle naturally. Mine. My mother laughed too quickly. Well, obviously it's technically yours, Donna, but... No. Still calm. It's legally mine. Interesting thing about boundaries. They sound brutal to people accustomed to unlimited access. I removed the next documents slowly. 3 notices to vacate. Legally filed. 30 days. 1 for my mother. 1 for my father. 1 for Brooke. The color drained from Brooke's face first. Then my mother's. Interesting honestly. Because confidence disappears incredibly fast once paperwork replaces emotional manipulation. You can't evict family. Thin voice now. My lawyer says I can. I laid the notices beside the deed carefully. You never paid rent. You never signed leases. In the eyes of the law, you're guests. Silence swallowed the room. Huge silence. Because suddenly family stopped functioning like a magic spell. Interesting thing about reality. It doesn't care who raised their voice longest. Brooke whispered. My launch. One collaborator quietly picked up her purse. The photographer started coiling cables silently. The ring light still glowed in the corner like a dying moon. Then my mother exploded. Not me. Her. Interesting honestly. Because manipulators panic once calm people stop cooperating publicly. After everything I sacrificed. You mean after moving into my house for 3 years? You ungrateful little. You sent my 7-year-old away for a social media backdrop. The room froze completely after that. No performance left. No spin. Just truth. Interesting thing about truth. It sounds devastatingly simple after years of manipulation. Then I removed the final photograph from the folder. The quick claim deed image. Sticky note visible. Get deed to sign. Tell her it's for fire insurance. My mother stopped breathing for half a second. Interesting honestly. Because exposure terrifies controlling people more than consequences do. This, I said softly, holding up the page, is fraud. Nobody spoke. Not the photographer. Not Brooke. Not my father sitting silently in the recliner. And honestly? That was the moment they all finally understood something devastating. My calm was never surrender. It was restraint.